seeing how God carried my parents through that, losing a child. Yes, I saw the tears, but they never went into a deep depression. But he understood the power of praise.
For decades, CeCe Winans has been the most decorated female gospel artist in history. Over the course of her career, she has secured 18 Grammy Awards, 36 Dove Awards, and a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Well, the situation has changed. In the past few years, CeCe Winans has been the focal point of controversies unrelated to her music, but with everything to do with politics, perception, and the impossible position of being a Black Christian woman. Stay with me, because the events unfolding CeCe Winans' life are more complicated than they seem. The legacy that made her untouchable. To grasp why the recent controversies came with such a hard blow, you must first understand the size and depth of what CeCe Winans has created. CeCe Winans was born in 1964 in Detroit, Michigan, to the highly revered Winans family of gospel musicians. She made her first national break in the 1980s when she collaborated with her brother BB in the duo BB and CeCe Winans, whose album went double platinum and also became the first gospel album to be awarded platinum status certification. She made her solo debut in 1995 with Alone in His Presence, an album which topped the gospel chart for a week and was the third million-selling gospel album in all of gospel music history. She felt like she had a way to the heart of everything she touched. A complete record of her record-breaking career over her 40-plus-year career can be found on Wikipedia. By the time Winans' career reached the 2000s and 20s, she had already won 18 Grammy Awards, becoming the most Grammy Award-winning female gospel artist of all time and ranking third all-time for the most Grammy Awards won by a Black woman, behind only Beyoncé and Aretha Franklin. In 2021, her live album, Believe for It, streamed over 1 billion times in the US alone. Her 2024 album, More Than This, was a #1 gospel album on Billboard, and her song, That's My King, was a #1 hot gospel track. She also claimed her 18th Grammy in 2026 for her Come Jesus Come album with gospel legend Shirley Caesar. She has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and on the Music City Walk of Fame in Nashville. She is the lead pastor of a church in Brentwood, Tennessee, with her husband Alvin Love II. She has sold more than 19 million certified records. By virtually every standard and metric, CeCe Winans is the most successful woman in the gospel music business. It is because of such a legacy that the debates that have involved her in recent years have hit differently than it would have for one less known. When you're the most awarded woman in your genre and your name has become synonymous with truth and faith, the debate between what people believe about you and what a headline says becomes very heated. That heated space is where CeCe Winans has landed more than once, and this has tested the devotion of even her staunchest of supporters. Stay with me, as we are not yet done with the controversies that have left a mark on Winans' legacy. The Trump COVID ad that split her fan base. In September 2020, while the U.S. was still in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, and a presidential election was still a few weeks away, it came to light that CeCe Winans had appeared in a government ad campaign commissioned by the Department of Health and Human Services. According to Politico, the campaign had been mandated by the Trump administration, and the campaign was funded with approximately $250 million taxpayers' funds, out of a total of $300 million overall budget in order to combat COVID-19 pandemic despair. The Grio's complete report of the outrage and her response reflected how the controversy quickly spiraled out of control. Winans had met with U.S. Surgeon General Jerome Adams to conduct an interview on the significance of wearing masks and abiding by health guidelines. The ads were planned to run the night before the elections on November 3rd, and critics promptly pointed out that this was no coincidence. Democrats opened an investigation into the campaign, which they saw as a ploy to help build trust in the Trump administration's COVID-19 response in the closing days of the election. According to critics, the campaign seemed like a strategic use of Winans' credibility as a beloved black gospel artist with deep gospel roots. When news of her involvement in the campaign broke out on Friday night, she became a trending topic on Twitter, now called X. The response from her fans came fast and harsh, most especially from black fans who had been cheering her on all along. Some fans said she was naive and a simpleton. Others accused her of being complicit. Some demanded an absolute boycott. There were thousands of posts with the word MAGA addressed to her. The questions started rolling in. Was she paid? Was she ignorant? People wondered if she was aware of what the ads actually were. People demanded that she state her political stance clearly and unambiguously. CeCe Winans replied the same night, releasing a video statement on social media. She said she was approached weeks ago to do an interview with the Surgeon General about the coronavirus. She mentioned that the interview was not at all political, but rather about the need to wear masks and take safety measures against the COVID-19 virus. She ended the video on a note that there were too many lives lost due to COVID-19 and that everyone should do their utmost to prevent any more lives from being lost. It was a measured and honest reply, but it wasn't completely successful in appeasing her critics. The bone of contention was not the mask or safety measures, but rather a matter of context and timing. An ad funded by the Trump administration, featuring a female gospel legend whose voice resonated with the black church and was set to air days to the presidential election, was not something that could be easily separated from its political context by saying the content was about public health. Many of her supporters felt that it was either she didn't fully know what she was involved in or that she had known what she was getting involved in but still decided that she wanted to get involved. The fact remained that both readings were uncomfortable. Winans survived that storm. Her gospel music career continued. The honors and awards continued to roll in. But there was a change in the way a part of her audience perceived her, and the ramifications of that change would be put to the test again years later in a controversy that seemed too awfully familiar. The Kennedy Center post that reignited everything. As if her saga with the Donald Trump ad was not enough, when it had barely laid its head to rest, another one, involving the American president, popped up again. By late 2025, Donald Trump had transformed the Kennedy Center in Washington, renaming it the Donald J. Trump and the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. The Kennedy family had been angered by the renaming in public. Many notable artists had decided to boycott the institution in protest of Trump's participation. The Kennedy Center was previously a celebration of artistic achievements that had little or nothing to do with politics, but it had now become a focus of a larger cultural debate over whether attendance at Trump-related events meant tacit support for his administration and policies. It was not just the Kennedy family and celebrities who were angered at this movie. A lot of Americans found it preposterous. It could easily have been the whole country, in fact. So imagine everyone's reaction when CeCe made a post that seemed like she was supporting this seemingly political move. During this time, CeCe Winans' younger sister, Debbie Winans, performed at the Kennedy Center Honors. CeCe shared her sister's successful performance after the event on social media. It was a post from a proud, warm sibling, the kind that's commonly made when someone you love succeeds on a large scale. She posted that the Kennedy Honors were awesome, complimented the production, and called her baby sister incredible. The social media reaction came almost immediately. CeCe Winans began trending on Thread. The controversy surrounding the 2020 Trump COVID-19 pandemic resurfaced in several posts along this one, and people were taking the two events as a trend rather than just coincidence. One user commented that CeCe Winans being ate up on Threads was not on their 2025 bingo card. Some wanted her to be cancelled, questioning how any Christian could support what they described as a vile regime. Others referenced Mahalia Jackson, a gospel singer from the 1960s who was famous for her contributions to the civil rights movement, indicating that the iconic singer of the era would never have made such a post. But there were also those who strongly supported her. Those from this camp noted that supporting the performance of a sibling is not the same as supporting the management of the venue or the political figure attached to it. Others further noted that CeCe was not the one who was performing at that show. She was not the one taking money from it, and she only congratulated her sister, who happened to have performed at the said venue. Several commenters pointed out that she's a gospel artist and a conservative Christian pastor, and that asking her to make statements that were anti-Trump was simply misreading her and what she has always been. As of when this video was made, CeCe Winans is yet to make a public and detailed response addressing the 2025 backlash. For some observers, the lack of a reaction itself was part of the narrative, and they contrasted her silence on this backlash to her quick response in 2020. For others, it was just that she wouldn't allow herself to be dragged into a political debate that she had always avoided on explicit terms. Over the course of her career, Winans has made it part of her public policy to not take sides and not play for an audience of one, a sentiment that her fans take as a sign of her spiritual integrity and her enemies read as a way to avoid being held accountable. Both controversies revolved around the same question, and there is no simple answer. Can a public figure with a huge platform and a faith-based audience claim to remain neutral in a polarized political moment? And what is the cost of their attempt to do so? If you think I am done, then you are wrong, because now we have to look deeper into how all of this affects her legacy and reputation in the eyes of her supporters. What it means for her once unstoppable legacy. CeCe Winans would not be the first gospel singer in history to be pulled between the demands of faith and that of political affiliation, and she won't be the last. The story of gospel music in America is a story of navigating through that tension. From musicians who were found marching alongside the civil rights leaders and those marching off the streets onto the stage. That navigation has never been that simple and has never been without a cost. The broader conversation about faith artists and political neutrality covers how the debate around CeCe fits into a much larger pattern playing out across gospel music. What makes CeCe Winans' situation particularly unique is the specific combination of her status as a person and the timing for these controversies. She is currently the most decorated female gospel artist in all of history, and for decades she has established a reputation of integrity, grace, and a style of a carefully dignified behavior which separates her from the cacophony of noises in the industry which surrounds her. She not only serves as a lead pastor in a conservative church, but also serves as a mentor to younger artists. She has been severally referred to, publicly, as a model of what it means to be a true believer in Christ, an embodiment of what it means to have a genuine character across a long career. This reputation of hers is what makes the political controversies surrounding her so disruptive, because they reveal the unsustainability of the standard and metric that she is held to, and not because they prove that she is a bad person. This shows that even the most well-executed career is fair game when silence is interpreted as acquiescence and political complicity in a world where a post celebrating a sibling can be interpreted as a political statement, and your decades-old audience of loyal supporters feels that your neutrality is a betrayal of shared values. Regardless of the 2020 controversy, CeCe Winans did not falter in her career. In fact, she went on to win other awards, to chart-topping albums, and to perform at the Grammy Awards itself, and she has continued to maintain her record as the most awarded gospel woman. The controversy in 2025 came when she was still on top of her game, and its effects on her reputation are yet to be felt. Her supporters are in abundance, and her work speaks for itself in a way that a social media frenzy can't reverse. It's important to reflect on what it has cost her to keep this resilience, and what it has cost her to keep standing in the place that she currently stands. Being a symbol has a certain kind of exhaustion, not only an artist and performer, but a symbol. CeCe Winans has been portrayed for several years as a paragon of something and an example for others. She has been shown to be the human evidence that one can be commercially interesting without giving up their faith. A tangible example of how a black woman in the music industry could be respected without compromising her ideals. She has been shown to be the evidence that gospel music could be popular, that it could be in the mainstream, while still retaining its theological and spiritual significance, which, of course, made it gospel music in the first place. That's a lot of evidence to have to present throughout a lifetime. And the thing about being someone's proof is that as soon as the life that you've lived begins to provide evidence of the opposite, however insignificant, however contextual, however easily explainable, you've effectively lost the fight. CeCe Winans did not do something objectively wrong to provoke the rise of the 2020 controversy. It grew out of the fact that people who had in their minds a version of her, a version that was perfect in respect to their values, a version of her that embodied their politics and their understanding of what faith requires in a crisis, found her to be much more complicated than the version of her that they had in their minds. And that dissonance was painful for them in a way that had very little to do with her and a great deal to do with what they needed her to be. This is the responsibility to which they seldom willingly agree to carry, and very often don't know about until it's too late to drop it. What was surprising, nevertheless, wasn't that the controversies occurred, but rather her way of going through them. At the time of this video, she hasn't made the kind of defensive public statements that can often do more harm than the original offense. She has not been contrite for an audience that was not completely in the dark about what she was to be contrite for. She hasn't changed her artistic persona yet in response to the pressure, and she hasn't given up on the theological convictions that have always been at the core of everything she creates. With what can only be called a practiced, almost architectural stability, she has gone on doing the work. And in the work that she does, she has made an argument, though one not screamed out, that the work itself is the answer. And that was not to all the questions that have been asked about her, but most importantly, whether she's who she's always said she is. But the discussions that have surrounded her name in the last few years suggest something true about the place she's in and the context of the times. Gospel music always has been and always will be political in nature, regardless of its conscious or unconscious use. The Black church in America was not just a religious gathering. It was a place where communities could come together to face and navigate through oppression. And the music that emerged from this was laden with the burdens of oppression, whether the singers intended for it or not. When CeCe Winans tells us that she refuses to take sides or publicly engage in political squabbles, she is speaking from a genuine position of faith. But it is also true that she's speaking from a stage that was created from a history that was always political, and that political history isn't erased simply because an artist doesn't engage with it consciously. What it all comes down to is not a tale of a fallen hero or a shattered reputation. CeCe Winans is still recording, performing, winning, and still being respected by millions of people worldwide. This story is actually about the tale of an extraordinary artist in an extraordinary time, and one that learned that even the most seemingly secure foundation is susceptible to forces that have rejected neutrality as an option. Her actions in the near or far future will dictate how the next chapter of one of the most amazing gospel career experiences in all of history will be remembered. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.